If you're running a marketing agency right now and you're running ads for local businesses and your client keeps complaining about lead quality, you've probably tried like 4 different tools to fix it: phone validators, email validators, captchas, the whole stack. I've been running my own agency for the last 5 years. I've done hundreds of thousands in lead gen for solar, roofing, dentists, GLP-1 clinics, and I've tried pretty much every tool on the market trying to solve this exact problem. In this video, I'm breaking down why duct taping a bunch of validation tools together is actually costing you more money and missing more bad leads than you realize, and I'm walking you through the one tool that I actually use for my own agency clients to fix this once and for all. If you're tired of paying for 5 different SaaS subscriptions that is still letting garbage slip through to your client's CRM, you're going to want to watch this whole thing. All right, let's get into it. All right, so this is the only tool I use to validate my leads. And first things first, if you're not validating your leads in 2026, you're running your agency on hope, and hope is not a business model, unfortunately. So other tools fail. That's the first thing we're going to be going over, and how they miss intent and generate false positives. Then we're going to be going over why validate, so preventing bad leads from entering your client's CRM. After that, we're going to be going over why Argus and the accurate validation built for agency workflows, which is you, and then how to use it. So how to validate before CRM and set import rules. All right, let's get into it. So why you need to validate leads. Let me break down exactly why this is a non-negotiable now. So 20 to 40% of leads coming through Meta in some verticals are not human anymore, depending on your source. So think like home services, where very high ticket home service businesses operate. 20 to 40% of those leads are usually fake. So if you're not validating your leads, you're wasting your client's time about half the time. And then, yeah, over the last 12 months, it's essentially doubled. Literally no one's talking about it. Everyone on YouTube that I've seen from the research I've done is just telling you to add extra form steps and more qualifying, questions, which in reality, it just adds friction to the actual client itself and makes it harder for them to actually go through your form, which in turn will turn them away. And then next is the algorithm problem. So Facebook's algorithm optimizes for the cheapest possible conversion, which means it'll happily feed your forms to bot networks and fraud farms if it gets the cost per lead down. So unless you have a layer checking these leads, you're shipping just straight up garbage into your client's CRM, and it's why your attention is so low. Your client only cares if the phone rings, and you should know this. If you've ever talked to a client and you've shown them your dashboard metrics, they just sit there and kind of like, okay, cool, you didn't get me any sales this month, and if you did, it didn't beat what I'm paying you plus ad spend. So what you think matters, the cost per lead, the ROAS, ad manager metrics, monthly report numbers, they're vanity metrics. I mean, cost per lead's cool if you're getting like $5 leads, but if it takes like 5 leads to convert, then your cost per lead really isn't $5. It's like $25 to get an actual lead worth their time. And then what your client actually cares about is, does the phone ring? Are the leads real humans? Is the campaign making money? Can they trust you? And every other metric you put in the monthly report is legit like a Christmas ornament to them. Think of a giant Christmas tree and all the ornaments on it. Like, looks cool in the living room, but not very useful to them in terms of making money. So when half their leads are dead numbers, the whole campaign is a complete failure to them, no matter what the ads manager says. If you want to use Argus 101, click the link below and you can use it for free for 14 days, and you can install it in literally 5 minutes. Just install it on a client form funnel and see what's actually in your leads. This will not only make your clients more money, but it'll also make you more money because your clients are actually staying longer. Let's go into validation. So validation is your defense when client questions your work. So everyone has gotten that text at some point where a client's like, listen, just called the lead batch you sent me, and these leads, half of them didn't respond, and my front desk is really frustrated. So right now, with no validation, your client complains, you say sorry, you either refund or you make good on them, or you have to lower your retainer to make it worth their time. And most agencies, they're stuck in this apology mode. So with verification data, the conversation completely changes. You pull up the report and the complaint dies in 2 minutes, because what are they going to do? Sit there and argue with the fact that the phone number is validated, the email is validated, the person spent like 60 seconds on the form actively filling it out, looking through your funnel, actually taking the information in. Like, they can't really argue with that the same way that they can argue with, okay, I called someone, it's a dead number, did you just send me straight shit? So the result is your client churn is the single biggest reason agencies die in the space. That alone is worth the price of admission 10 times. So you know why you need to validate. The next question is how. And this is where most agency owners go down a really expensive rabbit hole that I want to save you from, because as you can guess, I went down the rabbit hole myself. So part 2, what other agency tools do and why strapping them together actually costs you more in the long run. So when most agency owners realize they actually need to validate the leads or have some sort of system in place to not just send straight up raw leads to their clients, they start Googling and end up subscribing to like 4 or 5 different tools. And each one do one piece of the puzzle. I mean, I did this for over a year. I gave up on it and built my own thing, as you can tell, but here's exactly why this approach is broken. So email validators tell you if the email format is valid, but not if a real monitored inbox that anyone reads. Phone validators tell you if the phone number is active, but not if it's a burner VoIP number that gets created and burned by the hour. And IP checkers, they flag VPNs, but they don't know if the area code matches the time zone, the zip, or anything really about the lead. And so when you have all these individual signals, it may look good to you, but none of them are talking to each other. None of them are actually like working together to actually diagnose if this lead is real, what the score of the lead is, and how actually useful it might be to your client. So each tool is just one signal, and one signal is a clue, not a verdict. So like I kind of hinted at earlier, the signals really only tell the truth when you stack them all together. So these tools don't talk to each other. When you just have an individual email validator, phone validator, IP checker, they're not talking to each other. They're just telling you one piece of the story at a time. But a lead can have a valid email format, a real mobile number, and a clean IP and still be a bot because the form was filled out in literally like 1 second with 0 mouse movement and every field was pasted in. So why you miss this? You'd never catch that with 3 separate tools because none of them watch the form being filled. So you're paying for 3 subscriptions and the bots are still slipping right through your stack. Most of these validator tools, they work after the fact the lead's been submitted. So they're not actively on the form watching the lead, how they fill out and seeing their behavioral biometrics. They're just saying, all right, email's real, phone's real, IP's real. But that doesn't stop a real human fraud farm at all. So the core problem is these tools don't communicate. They each check one layer in isolation. And without a unified decision layer, you're left interpreting raw signals manually every time, which is a giant time sink as well. Let's just be honest here. You don't have time to individually check every single lead if you're doing hundreds of leads a month. That would just literally sink your time. And even if you have a VA doing it, that's still expensive for just them checking Twilio or whatever service you're using to check the phone, email, and IP. So the math on stacking tools is actually brutal. So once you run the numbers, the cost adds up fast and you still end up doing the work manually. So an email validator is like $50 a month, a phone validator can be like $80 a month, and an IP checker $60, and a CAPTCHA service, that's like about $220 altogether before adding anything advanced, and you still having to manually check the lead. So you're paying a VA or you're wasting that time yourself. So none of these tools route leads either. None of them score, none of them give you a tier, and you have to still build a decision layer yourself on Zapier or whatever. You're paying more, getting less, and still doing the work manually every time a client questions the lead. So the worst part is you end up filtering out good leads as well. So these tools with friction, like the CAPTCHAs, the longer forms, the extra qualifying questions, all that's doing is when a real user is actually filling out your form, it's just making it harder and harder and harder on them to try and reduce the bots and the bad leads, the tire kickers. And that's not good user experience. You want your users to be able to submit the form if they're actually interested in your service, not take like a 10-minute form survey. Like that's not fun for anyone. And this is the part that makes Argus really cool because it's invisible validation. So it works in the background on your web page while they're actually filling out the form. So it adds 0 friction to your forms. It just actively watches, monitors, and then scores everything and why everything talks to each other. So bots are caught, real leads sail through unbothered. So as you can see, like with your CAPTCHAs, you're dealing with bang, 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 and extra qualifying questions, which just no one wants to do. So CAPTCHAs, longer forms, extra qualifying questions, all that adds friction to the people who actually want to buy. And bots don't care about CAPTCHAs. They solve them or skip them, but a real lead on their lunch break absolutely bounces. So you end up filtering out the good leads while still letting bad ones through, which is the worst possible outcome. I mean, if you've written a Facebook ad yourself, you have to hook people in because it's not like Google where they're actively searching with intent. On Facebook, you have to capture the scroll and then get them to fill out a form. So if not only you're trying to hook them in, but then you make them answer 10 qualifying questions while they have limited time, do you think they're going to really end up going through with your entire form? Probably not. So why Argus solves this? After a year of duct taping tools together and still getting client complaints, I started building my own thing in-house just for my agency because I knew like, okay, this is actually a problem and I don't have time to manually review all of these leads with like 4 different tools. So I used it on my own clients for almost 2 years before I turned it into a real product. And here's why it actually solves the problem that other tools can't. So 101 data points and 1 score. So you're getting all the tools combined plus more, and then it makes it into one genuine score that you can go off of, so you're not sitting there manually reviewing all of them. And all checks run in parallel and fuse into one verdict, so no decision layer to build yourself. 2, behavioral biometrics, so it actually watches the form being filled live. No other validator can do this. One flat price covers everything, so you don't have to pay for 4 subscriptions that don't talk to each other and that you have to Zapier together and then make a decision layer. One subscription, that's it. Zero friction for real users, so no captchas, no extra steps. The visitor never knows you're even there, so you just put it on your active funnel and bada bing, bada boom. You don't have to deal with a captcha or like extending your funnel into 3 different parts to try and get them to intent and get all the way through. So Argus runs all 101 data points in parallel, like I just said. When an email gets checked, the email verification, or when a lead gets checked, email verification gets checked, phone validation, IP analysis, geo-matching them, device fingerprinting, behavioral biometrics, and all of it happens in 150 milliseconds in the background while the form is being submitted. So what you get back, the lead comes back with a 0 to 100 score, a tier, whether it's premium, standard, review, or reject, and a full reason breakdown explaining why it's scored that way. You don't have to interpret raw data. You get a verdict you can actually act on, and it's not as confusing of trying to like decipher like, a puzzle. Behavioral biometrics, what literally no other validator can currently do. So this is what catches the lead that looks perfect on paper, but was actually a bot or fraud farm operator. So what it does is it watches the typing rhythm. We watch how fast and how naturally the form fields are being typed into. Bots fill forms in milliseconds with really no variation. Also the mouse movement. So real humans move their mouse naturally between fields. Bots jump directly to inputs with 0 movement. Think like they're instantly just jumping onto your form, pasting in information, and submitting in like 2 seconds. Paste behavior. Like I just said, when fraud farm operators paste pre-filled data, we detect paste events and factor them into the score. I mean, think about it. If you're operating a fraud farm where you have a bunch of people's data that you're inputting onto forms, the odds are is you're not going to sit there and individually type out all of it. You're like switching in between your Excel sheet and the form, Excel sheet and the form. And Argus can see when they switch tabs or windows. And scroll patterns as well. To do this, you have to be on the page while the form is being filled, which is why every other API tool misses entirely, because all of these tools are scoring after the fact the lead's been submitted, while Argus is actively scoring while they're filling out the form. One flat price completely covers everything. So with the Argus Lite plan, which is just $197 a month, you get full 101 point verification, automated routing so you can set up a webhook to the client's CRM, white label forms so you actually can remove the Argus logo and just put your form as your own onto the client funnel, and client dashboard. So the report your client actually wants to see, and you can download a PDF of the lead itself and show that to your client, which shows a ton of information for them so you can actually justify why you sent them that lead. And compare that to stacking individual tools, which would cost you over $220 a month easily, and that's just like getting started, and still leaves you doing the routing manually, no scoring, so you have to build a decision layer yourself and zap everything together, And then there's no tier, so no automated routing per client, no dashboard, nothing to show your client, so it's just pretty much just like, yeah, we validated this with 4 different tools, zap them together, send it to your CRM, but we can't really put a score on it, and we can't say really how good it is. We just, the phone number apparently is valid, and the email is apparently valid, and I guess the IP is here, but we can't really tell you if it was a bot or if it was a human fraud farm or if it was an actual person with intent. So compare that to stacking individual tools that easily push past $300 a month when you have something a little more advanced going on, and you still have to do manual routing. So here's a breakdown of Argus and how to use it for lead validation. Now let me show you the actual flow of how this works inside your agency. From the moment you sign up to the moment you're sending verified leads to your client, it's genuinely simpler than most people expect. So you sign up, you create an account and get an API key. Then you install the script on your landing page or the form on your landing page. Either way, if you want to use the script, that's for people that already have a form on their page, but they don't want to switch out their existing form. So we have a script tag for you that works the exact same. Or you can use a hosted form, which you just put on your page and you get the full tracking. Then you run the traffic and send visitors and watch the validation scores. And then you connect it straight with your client's CRM with a webhook. That's it. So from install to verified leads in your client CRM, you're looking at 1 afternoon of setup, and then it runs in the background forever. Like genuinely, an afternoon is honestly a little, not the truth, because it takes genuinely like 10 to 20 minutes to properly set this up. If you know what you're doing with high level, or if you know what you're doing with your client CRM, it doesn't take long at all. So step 1 and step 2 to sign up and install. So step 1, sign up and grab your API key. Takes about 60 seconds, and you're going to connect that to your actual website's domain, so that actually whitelists that particular website. And then you head to argus101.com, pick a plan, start the 14-day free trial. No sales call required. I mean, I despise sales calls. They're just such a waste of time, and we all know how they're going to go. They're going to try to pressure you into something you realistically were just hopping on because you were curious, and now you're just paying like a ton of money to someone because they did some incentivized pricing or whatever. The dashboard generates an API key, and the second you sign in, that's what connects you to forms on Argus. You don't pay anything for 14 days, and you can fully stress test it on your real client's traffic before you actually want to commit to anything. And then step 2 is you install a thing. So 2 options, both take about 5 minutes. We kind of went over that just previously, but option 1 is paste the one script tag onto your landing page. It's the literal same skill as installing a Facebook pixel, because that's a script tag as well. Option 2 is you build a hosted form in the drag and drop builder, which is like the exact same as Go High Level's drag and drop builder. It takes like zero skill to figure that one out. And then you embed it on the page. No developer needed for either, and your VA can literally do this for you. So step 3 and 4, score leads and route to your client. So 1, you want to run normal traffic and watch it score in real time. The second someone hits submit, all 101 data points get checked: behavior, email, phone, zip, IP, device, duplicates. Every lead comes back with a score, a tier, and the full reasons behind why it scored that way. This is usually the oh wow moment when you actually see how much of your client's traffic was never human, or like how genuinely terrible the traffic really was. And connect it to your client CRM with webhooks. So this is the crazy part, is a webhook is super easy to figure out. You just literally, in Go High Level, it's just like you have the inbound webhook like automation, and then you just connect to that, map the fields, and you're done. So on the starter and growth tiers, you can filter by score. So for example, only send leads scoring 70 or higher ever reach the client. Borderline leads sit in review tier, where you can manually decide instead of getting silently killed. A reject tier, leads never touch your client ever. So they only ever see real scored documented leads from day 1. You tune the scoring weights per vertical and per client, or leave the defaults, which work out of the box for most agencies. And here's the really cool part, is you can actually make automations off the webhook itself, because our webhook tells you the score, the geo match, and a bunch of other things. So you can make automations specifically based on certain scores, so it routes them with more urgency compared to someone that's like a standard lead, because you want the premium leads to be on top of now client calling them, because these are people that are the best of the best leads. So there's a lot of customization you can do within High Level with just the inbound webhook and making your automations based off of the fields that you receive. Okay, so now that you understand how those webhooks work and the level of customization that Argus enables inside of your High Level, it's honestly crazy. I want to go into more now the 4 lead tiers, kind of how that works, and kind of explain it a little more in depth, because I know it may be confusing at first, kind of how we're scoring them into certain buckets. So let's go into that. So the 4 lead tiers explained. So premium, this is like the cream of the crop. You should make automations around these types of leads, because like if you've ever heard of speed to lead before, get to that lead within 5 minutes. These are the people, because nothing's wrong with the lead. They filled out the form like a human. They legitimately have nothing wrong with their contact information. They are where they say they are. They're geo-matched correctly. So these are people that you want to hop on immediately. Then you have standard, review, and reject. So standard, typically these leads have like 1 or maybe 2 things wrong with them. Maybe they're not geo-matched. Maybe they have like a VoIP number, stuff like that. So it's not quite a perfect lead, but it's still a lead that you should still try to contact and try to reach out to. Review, these are leads that have like 2 or 3 problems with them. Maybe they're not geo-matched. Maybe they also have a VoIP number, but their email is valid, so you can still email them. So it's just kind of a manual decision from that part. And then reject, these are like just garbage leads. Like nothing's making sense with them. They're not geo-matched. Their contact information doesn't make any sense. They're like typing in some BS for their names. So these are just people that you just ignore completely, and it saves you a bunch of headache. The nice thing is you tune the scoring weights per vertical and per client, or leave the defaults, which work out of the box for most agencies. And I'd recommend that you actually leave the defaults until you kind of have more experience with Argus and kind of know what you want to score more heavily towards, but to each their own. So that is the entire flow. From install to verified leads in your client CRM, you're looking at 1 afternoon or potentially like less than an hour of setup. Then it runs in the background forever. So 1 afternoon, that's all the setup takes. You sign up, install, connect to your CRM, done. Runs forever. After setup, it runs in the background, no manual work, and no babysitting. 14-day free trial. So you head to Argus 101, no sales call required. I despise sales calls. I think they're such a waste of time. So you stress test it on real client traffic before you ever commit. And this is also, you catch the bots invisibly, and the real leads sail through unbothered, no friction, no one knowing like 10 multi-step forms with like 3 pages of funnels and a captcha. And this is how lead validation is supposed to work. It's not supposed to be a headache. It's supposed to be something that is done in the background. You get a computed score, and if it needs a little extra attention to detail, you can just go through and check it quickly. And last thing that is really cool about Argus is it actually has real-time lead notifications, and it shows you exactly the score, all the details of the lead, the validation behind it, and pretty much what it would show you in the dashboard, but just sent on your phone. So you can just go ahead, look at it, looks good, forward. If not, you can set up the webhook straight into your client's CRM. But there's so much customization in Argus that you can really tailor it for your specific niche or your specific agency itself. If you're an agency owner stitching 4 different validator tools together and still getting client complaints, you're paying more and getting less than you would with one unified system. If you want to try it, click the link in the description to use Argus for free for 14 days. With that being said, if you like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.